guys, Aqua here, back with another video. Here today to give you my reaction to, or my review of this new Capella Grey record, Vibe Responsibility. So this is actually, I believe, Capella Grey's like third or fourth record. So far, he obviously got big off of Gallus, but he actually had been putting in some pain, had a couple records before Gallus, and then definitely took his time and slowed down. I think a lot of people may kind of expect for somebody like that to sort of immediately jump on the train, kind of like Tyler did, and sort of maintain their momentum as quickly as possible. But besides singles here and there, Capella Grey sort of like definitely stayed in the shadows between now and Gallus. He did pop back out for a little bit for an EP that I covered called Here Damn. And then in 2023, we started getting some singles that were, touted to be on his next full-length album, Vibe Responsibility. Record got pushed back, but he talked about how he was taking time to perfect the record and make sure that it was as good as possible. And in 2024, we finally got it. And overall, I can say I was definitely impressed. There were it definitely wasn't perfect, and there's some issues that we'll talk about, but overall I had a really good time with this record, and a lot of this journey has been me kind of finding Capella Grey in terms of enjoying his music for the first time and really getting into what he does, what he brings to New York and all that good stuff. So yeah, let's get into it. The writing, I'm gonna start off and give that a great. Now, it's important to understand with Capella Grey, in my opinion, that his writing doesn't appear to be very sort of multifaceted on the surface. He kind of stays in this very small lane, lyrically of, very casual hookup culture and very like party anthem vibes. Nothing too like serious when it comes to sort of like deep love or long-standing romance or relationships. Again, just kind of listen to that casual vibe. But what I liked is that he very much explored every aspect of the casual vibe, and he explored sort of the different, not only did he explore the different emotions that people go through when they're in that casual vibe, but also the different settings that you find yourself in, whether you're at somebody's crib or at a party. I really enjoyed sort of, he fully fleshed out the experience of casual dating, which I think is really, really impressive. And I don't think, unlike certain artists, I feel like he didn't rely on, in my eyes, just talking about sex. I think a lot of artists who sort of get into making music about casual dating tend to just kind of like rely on sexually explicit content. But I think Capella Grey very much sort of is much farther past that from a writing standpoint, and was really able to delve into the emotions that he was going through as he was, hooking up with this girl and that girl, and stuff like that. So I definitely thought that was really strong. That being said, this album is like really, really long. I believe over 20 songs, and at a certain point, it definitely got a little bit repetitive, especially the sort of main lyrical theme of like, hey, I'm chilling with this girl, we're doing it, we're getting freaky with this girl, but there are no like strings attached. That came up a lot in his music, and at a certain point, it's kind of like, we get it. How many more times can you talk about this kind of stuff? So writing was great. It wasn't amazing. There wasn't a wealth of topics that he talked about, and there certainly wasn't like anything super, super impactful, but he knew what the assignment was, and he executed perfectly on what he was meant to do. So I think the writing was great. Next up is the vocals, and this is something that it has taken me a really long time to kind of unpack and understand from Capella Grey, but I think over time I've begun to kind of really appreciate what he does vocally, in the way that he sort of dives into these like very interesting crevices. But what's interesting about Capella Grey is, despite the fact that on his face he doesn't have like a classical singer voice, he still very much has range and is able to find very soothing aesthetic pockets, in a higher register and in a lower register, which I think is really, really impressive. You can tell that he definitely is working at the limits of his vocal capability, making sure that, again, while he may not be the strongest like classical singer in the truest sense, he very much maximizes, the catchiness and the quality of the vocals that he does have, making for a really, really good listen. As mentioned earlier, he's like not crazy with like the, in terms of like true belting or like, more like traditional, just pure singing vocal chops, which is why I gotta give him a great. But I really appreciated the way that he kind of utilized his voice throughout the record to engage in plenty of different ranges. I thought that was really, really impressive. Production, this was definitely the weakest aspect of the record in my opinion, though I wasn't exactly surprised. This is also, in my eyes, the part of the record that suffered the most from the length, because of course, Capella Gray has his like patent kind of like Caribbean, I think it's Virgin Islands sort of sound to him. And he's also sort of got this like 2010s trap, trap R&B infused sort of like style songs, reminiscent of Jacquees or Bryson Tiller. And of course, he's, not immune to a song like Antics, where he's got like a full-blown twerk beat and going crazy. But I think the two things for me that I felt listening to the record production-wise were, number one, I felt like I wasn't getting anything that I haven't heard before. Y'all know me, I very much prefer if artists have a unique production style, or at least a production style that distinguishes them specifically, or their aesthetic / brand. And I felt like with Capella, it was a lot of just riffing off of like 2010s, trap soul beats, and not literally the album Trap Soul, but trap R&B beats, and twerk records, and again, he's got his little Jamaican flair, which is why it's a good and not a mid. But there was definitely a lack of originality in my opinion, there was definitely a lack of originality in my opinion. On top of that, with as long as the record was, beats began to blend together, and with the sort of lyrical sort of range being as small as it was, it very much made for a very monotonous record, where I felt like no song necessarily sounded bad on its own, but as the totality in its album, a lot of songs felt like repeats. A lot of songs blended together in ways that I just felt like impacted listening experience negatively. Next up, we have the features, and these were solid enough. I really love when people pull like that very large like range of features. I always love when that happens, and I really liked how he pulled certain R&B artists like Jacquees to sort of fully engage with that R&B style. But then he also, of course, employed rappers such as Young M.A., Favi, and French Montana to sort of give him a different sort of vibe as well. I also loved on the Young M.A. track that he also had, I believe, I can't remember, Jawani. I don't know how to pronounce it. Jawan. I can't remember, but he's definitely an older sounding rapper, and I've definitely heard him sort of before on older records, and so it's nice to see him also like sort of pulling that older style as well. That was like really, really refreshing and great to hear. That being said, I wasn't particularly wowed by any feature. Even the Jacquees one, I wasn't like particularly like wowed by necessarily. And so despite an overall consistent list of features, and there was certainly nobody who was bad besides, how do I pronounce his name? Skillbangs, I think, which is more of a personal preference, mind you. I just don't enjoy Skillbang's voice or music at all. But honestly, like, I feel like he goes on all these daggone albums, and whenever somebody's got like a super Jamaican track, he kind of checks in and does his little verse. So that kind of, at this point, that kind of just feels like a poll tax at this point. And so I'm not really mad at it at all. That was the only feature I just didn't gravitate towards. But overall, it like the features were solid enough. I just felt like nothing really stood out to me as like, oh my god, like this guy went crazy. Everyone sort of gave standard performances, and so yeah, overall it was just great. Overall musical execution, I'm also gonna give a great surprise surprise. Uh, I while I did have the point earlier about how the songs definitely have a little bit of monotony and stuff gets exhausting at some point, especially with the same production. I do feel like his vocals provide enough flavor and uh, diversity throughout the record to still make it entertaining. And I think it's got to count for something that each individual song, in my eyes, is still great to amazing. I really found myself coming back to a lot of it, and it was a very playable, very listenable record. That's kind of what you want from a Capella Gray, right? To just make those catchy songs that you're going to enjoy, that are relatable and fun, right? So, yeah, overall, I felt the musical execution was great, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah. And overall, man, I thought this record was great. A solid addition to Capella Gray's, what's it called? Discography. I definitely want to go back and listen to his older music because I'm curious, how this stacks up to his other, records. It's definitely a more fleshed out and complete experience than Here Damn. And I definitely overall feel like he delivered. Though, like I said, I wish the record was a little bit shorter. Let me know what y'all thought of this in the comment section below. And with that being said, peace, y'all.